Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Biotech Challenges and Opportunities. Thank you for being here today. We have this month Biotech in the spotlight. So we have had other webinars highlighting the biotech startup ecosystem in Latin America and Canada. And we are really glad that we have two speakers today, plus Marcelo, which is connecting probably later. We have Luis from a university in Sao Paulo, and we have Chris in Toronto, helping us to understand a little bit more about the ecosystem in general terms about biotech in Canada and Latin America, respectively. So we are going to start with some questions in a few minutes, just for you guys to know. If you have any questions or comments, just please go ahead and send us the questions to contact@latamstartups.biz or through the hashtag LatAmStartups. And we'll be happy to answer your questions anytime and probably to connect with the two participants today. So for now to start, before I start, I always say, what is this about? LatAm Startups is a nonprofit organization based here in Toronto. We help startups to scale. So we're really glad to connect Canadian and Latin American startup ecosystems. So let's start now, and we will start with Luis in Sao Paulo. Luis, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Luis. I'm talking from Brazil, from Ribeirão Preto specifically. We are talking from Supera Technology Park, which is an innovation habitat here in Brazil. And we are very glad to participate in this webinar.
Thank you, Luis. And now, Chris, you are here in Toronto, so please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Chris Dudley. I'm the director of Helix, which is Seneca's on-campus entrepreneurship and innovation incubator. I'm happy to be part of this webinar.
Thank you so much, Chris and Luis. So we are going to start with some questions. First of all, we were having another two webinars with some content about the Latin American and Canadian startup ecosystem in biotechnology, which also covers, health, and it covers some agricultural technology part of that. So for the first question will be, how really do you define today a biotech company? So Chris, if you could start with that answer, what is a biotech company for you?
Well, for me, a biotech is using living organisms for the purpose of developing advancements in a number of different industries, agriculture, health. This could involve modification of genes and genetic engineering, but it's looking at old problems with new light.
Awesome. So Luis, for you, what is the definition that you guys have in Brazil about biotech companies?
Well, I'd like to introduce Guilherme, that is our International Office Coordinator. He is here, and he will also participate in this webinar with us.
Hello, Maria. Hello, Chris. Glad to be here. I'd like to talk about this question, starting with technology is getting into every sector, so it's getting harder to define what's a biotech company. But specifically, I'd say it's a company that works towards the improvement of life science and agriculture with the use of technology and drug discovery, working to discover new processes and elements, molecules, and the improvement of health in general.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you there in Brazil. So the next question is about, the biotech sector itself. We have seen in the content that we presented in the last webinars, we have seen a drop in the investment in biotech companies in compared with some other companies in tech sectors like IoT or FinTech or the others. So why do you think is the main reason why the market in your country should support biotech startups? And Chris, we'll start with you.
So in my mind, this is a new way to approach old problems. And to move the standards higher, faster, create more of more satisfaction and solve problems in a better, more economical way. That the bringing in technology into this allows us to redefine the playing field, and it is something that does take more investment, but the outcomes can be very, very disruptive and changing in a positive way. So I think we need to continue to support and invest in this, because this is the way to move forward.
Sounds perfect. Luis, why do you think right now for Brazil, this is kind of like a really important sector, is growing really fast. So in main terms, you guys have a lot of things that will kind of impact the biotechnology sector. Why do you think, or how do you think the government should support biotech companies in the general ecosystem in Brazil?
Well, normally biotech innovation here in Brazil is really different from the other countries. Sorry. Here normally is disruptive with a great potential. So then the companies here is really focused on the research and the technical aspects of the innovation. So we try to help these companies to get a really nice business model so they can develop it and put this innovation to the market. So we really think that this potential should be, I don't know, show for everybody that can use all these kinds of the things that were developed for the companies.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. You mentioned that the biotech sector is very different from other countries. How do you see that difference, and what is the compared with the other countries that you have seen? For example, what is the other country or countries that you compare the biotech sector in Brazil in respect to with the others?
Well, we have some specific questions here in our country that the technology, and especially in health and biotech sectors, they are very slow to the go-to-market, to reach a point to go-to-market. So we have a lot of barriers and regulations that take like years to the research, to go through all the process. So sometimes companies in Brazil that are developing some products, they prefer to go outside, to go to the US or other countries, perform the tests there, and maybe even license and do all the IP issues outside Brazil, because we have all these long processes.
Sounds good. So you highlight there some of the challenges, but we have similar challenges here in Canada. That's right, Chris. So we do actually found in some of the research that for commercialization of biotech company here in Canada, it takes around 10 years. How do you see those challenges right now, Chris? And how is Seneca helping through those challenges to those companies?
I think there's an ecosystem that supports companies in moving forward. Seneca, it's the university network, it's the college network that it comes together. Even institutions, well, Seneca with our incubator, it's supporting these ventures that are just starting out, and then connecting them into the ecosystem so that they can continue to grow. My understanding is from a biotech standpoint, Canada is doing actually quite well. I believe we are second worldwide in biotech industries, and I think we want to continue to develop that sector, and I believe it's incumbent not just on one institution, but in a network supported by the government to continue to develop and support this industry.
Perfect, Chris. Yeah, actually, we found that Canada has a goal for 2025 to be in the top 3 of the countries, commercializing in biotech companies. So that's part kind of the goal. If we are second already, that's really good. In respect of the opportunities, Luis, in Brazil, what do you think is the main opportunity you guys have developing new startups in biotech?
Right now, we have a great number of incubators and accelerators showing up, and they facilitate the access to information and to investors. So I believe this is a good opportunity right now, a good point to start investing in these companies with great potential. So all this network that is being created now, not only in Brazil, but worldwide, is one of the great points in these late years.
Awesome, thank you. And Chris, regarding the opportunities here in Canada to develop biotech companies, what do you think is the main opportunity for those companies to be developed here in Canada? Chris, you're mute.
Yeah, sorry, are you talking main sectors, or I don't quite understand.
For biotech startups, for example, what is the main opportunity to be developed here in Canada right now? Why they should, what is the great opportunity for them in the market?
So if I understand your question correctly, I think agriculture and health are 2 sectors that pose amazing opportunities for biotech. There's unlimited potential in these 2 sectors, and I come back to my last answer, where it becomes incumbent on government and the ecosystem, incubators and all of the regional innovation centers to all come together and support these businesses. Even if I look at Seneca, I look at our applied research area, which basically works with companies and supports them with our students to develop these initiatives, and I think there's a real opportunity in that regard.
Perfect, thank you. And certainly what we have seen, the 2 major probably components that are developing right now in biotechnology is in agricultural technology and health. So that's a tendency as well in Latin America. And we actually got into the hub 1 in agricultural technology. So that's really, really nice. And actually it's from Brazil. So Luis, there you go. How more biotech companies can approach to investors and corporations in order to grow their business, and what's the best way to do that approach? Luis, you mentioned it, this is kind of a difficulty in Brazil, and investment in general terms is difficult for many startups. So what is the best advice you give them in order to actually reach those investors or corporations that can be, the perfect partner for these biotech companies?
Yeah, so there are a lot of barriers that make it hard the researchers and all of the projects to go to market, but I think the best way is to find right partners and institutions that can establish relationships between researchers and big companies, so that you have a network that can help you and support your project or your research with the best professionals, the best resources, and all of that. So connection is probably one of the main reasons that companies can go out of the laboratory and reach out to great investors and like industries. So I believe this is one of the best ways is to find key partners.
Perfect. Yeah, that's certainly really, really important because sometimes we see like many startups, they focus in to get investors, and I can see, many times why this happens, because if you are in a biotech company and your research is taking like 10 years or so, you kind of need to live between, those terms to actually go to commercialization. So, Chris, I could see that you were kind of like agreeing with Luis in the things of
Yes.
getting partners in the market. So how do you see that approach to investors and corporations? What is the approach that you normally advise the biotech companies?
I think the previous speaker hit it spot on. Finding the right partners, not chasing money for money's sake, but chasing the right partner, and then start speaking their language and setting the right expectations so that that partnership can develop, and then utilizing the ecosystem to continue to support the advancement. But I think it comes right back to finding the right partners and explaining the problem and explaining the solution as you see it, and setting those expectations. That way, everyone's walking in with eyes wide open, and there is an understanding around what it is that we are doing, and timelines and expectations.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the other things that we were talking about the health and agricultural is that we are, these new companies, they are actually disrupting the traditional sectors. How difficult is getting that disruption in terms of, dealing with traditional corporations, or dealing with, traditional companies in this sector, to understand what is new in agrotechnology or health, new devices or technology in this area. So I'm going to Luis first, how you are kind of like approaching to those traditional sectors to make them understand that a startup in biotech can help them to improve what they have.
Yeah, it's really not easy. So that's why it's really important. So for these companies to have an innovation area, or some people focus on what's going on with technology and everything, because those traditional markets, they're really hard to reach and really hard to get innovation. So also, people who buy this kind of things, hospitals and farmers and these clients, they have a different mindset. Like, if things have been working for so long the way they have, why should we innovate? So this is the kind of mindset we deal sometimes with. So that's why we have to have the same language with the responsible or the decision maker. The approach is, it depends. It really depends on who you're talking to. Sometimes it's really not easy, but it takes some time to establish a connection or a relationship. Yeah, I believe that's it.
Perfect, thank you. Chris, same thing here. How do you guys approach to those traditional companies? How do you advise the startup, to present something to them? Because sometimes it's too difficult. Those traditional companies have been in the market for so long. How do you convince them that new technologies can actually help them?
I think it's all about the culture of those companies. If they're embracing change, if their leadership understands that one must continue to move forward and constantly grow, or you will be left behind. It's those companies that have that leadership, they have that embedded culture already. Those are the ones that are going to naturally move to the biotech sector, or be open to embrace new ideas and new thoughts. The ones that, as a previous speaker talked about, the ones that are a little bit more stuck in the ways that they've always done, it's going to take a longer process, a longer engagement. And in both of those types of companies, I go back to my previous answer, you've got to find the right partner where it makes sense. So sometimes that's the ones that see that opportunities, want to embrace it because it fits with their culture, and those are the ones that you want to work with.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, both of you. So we have a question about Latin America and Canada in specific. They both have a strong ecosystems developing good biotech companies. And how do you see an opportunity between Canada and Latin America to actually partner and connect these both ecosystems? How do you think it should be the first steps to actually connect, the incubators, accelerators? What will you see will be the best way to actually, have a common point to actually connect between Canada and Latin America in this sector? So I'll go first with Luis.
Yeah, well, I think that great minds are everywhere. So we have great projects here in Latin America, so Canada. So what happens is that Canada is way more developed as an innovation hub. So the access to great companies and decision makers, investors is facilitated. And here in Latin America, we need to climb a huge mountain to talk to decision makers. So making this bridge between Canada and Latin America is a great opportunity for both of us. So that companies here can reach markets and investors in Canada, and Canadian companies can reach our market, because Latin America has a huge market and a great potential for biotech companies. So I think Latin America startups could gain visibility, and Canadian companies could gain market and also access to some key resources and people.
Thank you, Luis. Chris, in your perspective, you have received, I think, one or two Latin American startups from Brazil, I think. Yes, one?
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you see that potential connection? How do you see how we can develop that connection between Latin America and Canada and the biotech in specific?
Well, personally, I don't think there's one silver bullet that we implement this solution and all of a sudden everything happens. I think it's a multi-prong approach from government straight down to institutions, post-secondary institutions, incubators, and even multinational companies. So speaking from an incubator side, because that's what I know best, it's finding like-minded incubators with same niche focuses, a sharing of resources around perhaps mentorship, space, creating soft landing spaces for startups from both countries to move back and forth, because there's benefits for Canadian startups to move to the Latin America and vice versa. So creating those opportunities, creating those interesting collisions between people with passion and knowledge in both countries that have opportunities to come together around a problem and figure out a solution together. So it's not a Canadian solution. It's not a Latin America solution. It's people from both coming together and figuring out the solution for the betterment of all. And from an institution, it's understanding that you've got to play in the ecosystem, and you leverage everyone else's strengths and they leverage yours. And in doing so, 1 + 1 = 3. and that's for the betterment of all.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a really big part of the ecosystem normally is that support with diversity. So there are many people kind of adding something to a solution. So that's a really good strength. So for the last question and audience, please, if you have any questions, you can send it to contact@latamstartups.biz or to the hashtag LatAmStartups. If you don't have any questions right now, that usually happens, we receive the questions after. So just be okay to send us the questions after. We will happy to answer, by email anytime. So the last question will be about your main advice regarding an international company actually moving up or, probably being part of a soft landing program in the other country. What would you be your best advice for that company to understand your own ecosystem? So Chris, I go first with you. What would you say to those Latin American startups that are coming here, how they understand the ecosystem here to adapt better?
Well, I think one of the first things would be connecting into you and your organization.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have you become, if I could say, the conduit or the Rosetta Stone between these two areas that you can show the lay of the land in Canada. You have partnerships with a number of institutions. You are connecting into the ecosystem of most certainly Toronto, and I know you're working outside of Toronto as well. So I would strongly recommend the first spot is connecting into you and your organization. And then from there, you'd be making these strong introductions into institutions that make sense, that are right partners for that particular Latin America company, to get them space and assistance in Canada. As mentioned before by everyone, I think that it's that those right partnerships are critical, because if not, you lose time, you lose money. There's frustration that sets in. So you would be able to give everyone the lay of the land and make those strong connections. So that is my first and best recommendation to any Latin America startup that is looking to come in and work in Canada.
Thank you so much for that recommendation, Chris. Like
I
didn't
speak
expect
the
that.
truth.
I didn't expect didn't expect that answer. But thank you so much for that, Luis. There are also, other international startups that are looking at Brazil. So it's a huge market. It's a really big market, and we have talked this several times with our experts in different areas. And it's sometimes difficult for international startups to understand the business culture there and how to adapt that business culture. What is your best advice in that aspect?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chris that finding the right partners is essential, but also understand the culture and the regulations for the market is fundamental, because you need to understand not only how your product's gonna, which rule it's gonna follow, but also in which specifications of companies, I forgot the term right now, but like what's gonna be the point of your company, how much you're gonna earn, and the taxes you have to pay, what are your responsibilities within employees and all of that. You really need to understand all of these regulations, so you're not gonna fall off the mountain, for example.
Perfect. Yeah, and in specific, we know that each country has a really difficult regulation, and you have to, well, not difficult, but for international setup, sometimes it's difficult to understand, why this regulation doesn't make sense here or that. So in that specific aspect, do you guys in Brazil, do you receive international setups under your own incubator?
Yes, we did. We have here a Belgian company that was looking for a partner in the Brazilian market. They wanted to explore the diagnostic market here. So they came to Supera. They saw it, like we have here a health cluster, so it would be a good fit for them. And it's been already I think 1.5 year they moved to, they created an office here. They have a person here responsible for the operations. And now they are almost there, almost commercializing their product, but they are still like with some problems to understand still the culture and the regulations. So it's a long process that takes time, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. You have to be prepared to actually scale up and to understand the other culture. That's for both parties, not just regarding the Canadian or Latin American startups, or in general terms for those international startups, because we have sometimes audience in India or other places. So they should understand, the other markets. Sometimes we get comments like they have to understand us because we have the product, but it's not in that way. So thank you so much both for being here today and for answering the questions about biotech, the opportunities and challenges in our countries. So we keep going with this month Biotech in the Spotlight, and we are going to have, after this session next Wednesday, we are going to have LatAm chats. So we are going to invite some biotech companies to chat with us in Twitter and to answer some questions in Twitter. So you guys are more than invited to be part of the conversation as well at the chat. Thank you so much both for being here today, for Seneca and in Brazil, to be part of this webinar. And thank you everybody for being, attending this webinar today. Thank you. Bye now.
So pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.